If you think stats are what it's going to take to get you a college football scholarship, you better guess again. We'll talk about it today on the Gridiron Stud Show. Hey, I'm talking to you. Recruiting advice for everyone. It's the Gridiron Stud Show. Imagine being the state's leading wide receiver for your senior season. Imagine being your state's all-time passing leader. Imagine being your state's all-time rushing leader. And then having nowhere to go on signing day. All three of those scenarios have happened in the last 5 years in high school football, and it's going to happen again. So I don't want you guys out there to think that because you've piled up a bunch of stats, you're going to have colleges running to the door. That's not how this thing works. There was one year down here in South Florida, we had a player that had 38 sacks. You would think 38 sacks, this guy's got to be going to college. Here's the problem. Kid was 5'11", 180 pounds. This can happen in high school football, and college football coaches know that. So it's just really not going to be about your stats. The number one thing that a college football recruiter is doing is trying to project. He has to take the player that he's seeing right now in high school and project him out for the next 3 to 4 to 5 years. And one of the number one ways that they're going to do that, and a lot of guys don't want to hear it, is by your body composition. The number one thing being height, and that's fearful for everyone because we don't have any control over our height. But that's not the only thing. Do you look the part of a college football player? Do you move around that way? Do you have speed? Do you have strength? Do you look like you've been in the weight room? Do you look physically like you're going to be able to stand up to the rigors of college football and the pounding that you take in practice as well as in games every week? Because I'm going to say this for the 100th time. High school football is not college football. As you move out of high school football, the teams are better. The players are better. And now the funnel starts to become smaller. So on a given Friday night when you can go out and you can go dominate a player that you know is probably not going to play beyond high school, that's not going to be the case when you head out to play college football. And college football recruiters have to take, again, the player that they're seeing right now and project him into college. Now, some of the ways they do that is you may be small now, but they'll take a look at your frame and they'll say, hey, this guy, will he be able to grow into the player that we're going to need him to be at some point later on? They'll look at mom and dad, believe it or not. If mom and dad have some size to them, then it only stands to reason that this player will have size as well. And here's one of the things that is going to mess with some of the guys out there as well. There may be a player that has all the offers in town, 20, 30, 40 offers. What did he do on the football field stat-wise? He had 5 sacks for the year, or he rushed for 500 yards, or he just had about 10 or 12 catches on the season. But here he is with offers from all over the place. That's because the colleges have done their projections and they feel that that player, once he gets to college, is going to perform at a much higher level than he did in high school. What I see a lot of guys doing is thinking that, well, I rushed for 2,000 yards this year. Every college in town should be after me. Well, you did that in high school. You may not be able to go do that at Alabama or Auburn or Ohio State or USC or Miami or Florida. You have to have the right mindset. You have to have a good self-awareness and say to yourself, well, who did I do this against? Because a lot of things that another thing a college has to do is also take a look at the talent that you are going up against. They have to project and say, well, did this player go up against top quality talent? Also, he needs to, the college coach is going to kind of match up the talent that you are going up against in your area up against the talent that another prospect they're looking at went up against in their area. If they're going into a recruiting hotbed like Texas or Florida or Georgia or California and a player there rushed for 1,000 yards, but you rushed for 2,000 yards in your area that's not that much of a hotbed, that weighs heavily on them. What they're kind of saying, and again, this may not make you all too happy, but it's me being realistic with you. Your 2,000 yards in your neck of the woods may have only been 1,000 or 900 or 800 yards in one of these recruiting hotbeds where the defenses are loaded with Division I football players or the offense is loaded with Division I football players, and these are just the facts. And I'm not here to bust anyone's bubble, so to speak. I'm just here to make you aware of how college football recruiting works and then you go about trying to find your way in it. So if you're out here right now thinking that I'm piling up a bunch of stats and I'm showing that I'm a good football player, yes, that may be true. Do understand that that's not going to be enough. So if you aren't doing everything you need to do in the weight room, if you aren't getting the highest test scores possible to give yourself a chance if it comes down to you and another guy for a few remaining scholarships that they have, you better be doing that, because it's not going to be just about your stats. As a matter of fact, in the list of the top 5 or 6 things that are out there that a college coach is looking at, I would say stats are at the bottom of that list. If they're even on the list, they don't really care about how many points you scored against East Side High. They don't care about how many yards you rushed for against West Side High. They really are just trying to project whether or not you, the high school football player right now, is going to grow into the college football player that is going to help them beat their rival. And their rival is full of guys that were big time. Understand, your high school basically is only picking from that local area. They're only getting talent from that local area, wherever it is, whether it's Nebraska or Kansas or Indiana, wherever it is, you're pulling talent for that high school team from that local area. Colleges are pulling from all over the country. They're going to get the best player that they can from California. They're going to get the best player that they can from Florida and Texas and so on and so forth. They're combing the entire country to find the best players possible for their program. So the fact that you rushed for 250 yards against Fayetteville High School in your town doesn't really add up for them, because somewhere they have scouted a player from a team that had a lot more Division I football players on the defense out there somewhere. And so a lot of what they do is projection. So I don't want guys out here that are high school football players that are looking for college football scholarships to rest on the fact that they're going out every week and they're piling up stats. Do stats help? Yes. It is a bit of an eye catcher to get some attention, but if you think that's all that it's going to take for you to get a college football scholarship, listen to me today when I'm telling you stats are simply not going to be enough. They are a very they're a smaller portion of the equation of you getting a college football scholarship than you ever thought. Several years ago, the number 1 passer all time in the state of New Mexico, Easton Burray, found himself on signing day with nowhere to go. Ended up going, I think, to a prep school, and there was a lot of help that was needed with him getting into a college and finally being seen by a college. They just, at the time, and colleges had seen him, maybe not as many as should have seen him, but the ones that saw him perhaps liked prospects better, that they had been recruiting for a while. So he had thrown for more yards than anyone else ever in the state of New Mexico, and on signing day, he was looking for a place to go. Just this past year, the all-time leading rusher in the state of Alabama, Jalen White, who twice rushed for 400-plus yards in a game this year, didn't really have his pick of anywhere he wanted to go in the country. Ultimately, he ended up signing with Georgia Southern. There were some Power 5 schools that took interest late, but not enough to offer him a scholarship that he could go and commit and sign with. So rather than going to Alabama or Auburn, the 2 big boys in his state, he ended up signing with Georgia Southern. Now, Georgia Southern is a solid program that has a history of having solid teams as well as solid ground games. They have a player right now that's a running back that's playing for the San Francisco 49ers. And so they do have a history of solid players in the league. Matthew Breida came out of Georgia Southern. You may or may not know him. He plays for the San Francisco 49ers. Very solid player. But Georgia Southern, as we all know, is not Georgia. Georgia Southern is not Auburn. It's not Alabama. And so you would think if a guy's a leading rusher, if it was all about stats, and he's the all-time leading rusher, based on stats, he's the best high school running back that's ever come through the state of Alabama. You would think if it was just based on stats, Alabama and Auburn would have been the ones fighting for him all the way down the road. Well, it doesn't quite work like that. And that's not an example of what it is I'm trying to get across to you on this video, that nothing is. The all-time leading passer in the state of New Mexico, nowhere to go on signing day, and the all-time leading rusher ever in the state of Alabama didn't have an Alabama or an Auburn offer. So again, the bottom line here is don't rely on your stats. Do your work in the weight room. Make sure your speed is at its best. And the best thing you could do, one of the best things you could do if you're talking about trying to go to a Power 5 school or a Division 1 school is to go on Rivals or go on 247, go to the position rankings for your team, position rankings for the year that you're coming out, or you could use any given year and just go through and run through the top 100 guys. It's going to look at the heights and the weights of those guys, try to figure out how fast those guys are. And I'm telling you, if you're not that, it doesn't mean you absolutely can't go there, but it's just going to give you an idea of what those colleges are looking for. Every college is looking for that type of player. So it's not just Notre Dame, it's all Division I programs. Matter of fact, FCS programs are looking for that type of player. So as much as you can and within your control, you try to look like that type of player. Try to be that type of player in terms of trying to acquire that kind of speed, because that's what the schools are looking for. Try to acquire that kind of size as much as you can. And again, we've already talked about height. Your height is your height. If you're lacking in something, whether that's height or speed, you're going to have to go overboard in somewhere else. And if overall your athleticism is not top of the charts and it doesn't really necessarily meet the criteria as all of those players in that top 100 for your given position, then you've got to really go hard on academics, which you should be doing anyway. But whatever the thing is that you can control, go really hard in that, and that's how you make yourself a college football prospect. But the bottom line of this particular video is this: do not for 1 second think that piling up a bunch of stats or being the all-time passer at your school, in your county, in your state is going to be all that you need to have colleges coming and running to you. If you're thinking like that, there's a good chance, like some of the other examples I've laid out for you, that you may not have anywhere to go on signing day. You heard it here first. Hey, listen, if you like this video and it's helped you out and it's brought some enlightenment to you, do me a favor, like the video, share the video, because there's probably someone else out there that needs to hear this. And most important, subscribe, because I'm putting out videos like this all the time to help you guys out there get to the college football scholarship offers that are going to help you at the next level. So like, share, subscribe, and again, thank you for watching. It's the Gridiron Stud Show.